it's important to discuss symptoms versus causes when it comes to finding deals, businesses for sale, and closing multi-million dollar transactions. I feel that is necessary because a lot of people in the industry are trying to solve for symptoms and trying to address symptoms without knowing what's the root cause of the problem that they're facing. And I've seen that happening to many companies, search funds, individuals that wanted to acquire businesses, even advisors that wanted to sign sales side clients. A lot of them are stuck into a mindset that it's kind of old, in my opinion, and it doesn't necessarily serve them anymore, especially in today's economy. Now, that mindset, in my opinion, is causing a set of symptoms, and people don't go to the root of the issue, kind of like try to identify what's causing these symptoms, these problems that they're facing. And so I want to kind of like break down my thoughts around deal sourcing and challenges that people are facing with that. Because in many cases, I see a lot of folks coming to us and say, well, we want to find more deals, but we don't want to hire any third party. Or we want to find more deals, but don't want to pay any money. We want to find more deals, but we wouldn't do anything other than existing referrals or references between different providers, and many others that I can list, and you can fill the blanks if you like. All of these are kind of like, are all symptoms that are rooting to the same cause, which is a lack of belief in something that might be working better than anything that they've done in the past. And certainly, I might understand the concern of a lot of these folks, because if they've been in business for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe you have been in business for 20, 30, 40 years, you have developed a certain strategy, blueprint, and solution that worked for you so far. But what if I tell you that during all of these years, you left a lot of money on the table and you didn't even realize it? Maybe because you were lazy, but maybe not. Maybe you just were unaware of other options that you could leverage to find more deals, find better deals. And again, getting back to the symptoms, a lot of times I also have conversations with folks that say, well, I have deal flow, but it's bad. Or I have good deals, but they're not enough. I'm getting referrals, but they're not enabling me to hit my goals. All these are symptoms, again, and they're all rooted to the same cause, which is your system is broken, and it's not what is going to help you achieve the outcome that you desire, which is more deals, more money, more transactions, more success, you name it, independently, of why you are doing these transactions, right? You might want to acquire a business for yourself. You might want to build a portfolio. You might be doing a roll-up. You might want to just sign up new sales side clients. You might be an investment banker supporting businesses, and you want to help them exit and achieve the best possible outcome. That is really irrelevant. What matters is, if you're watching this, chances are you have some type of problems in sourcing deals, finding transactions, originating opportunities. And if you haven't solved the problem yet, chances are you're looking at symptoms instead of causes. So you're focusing on what you're getting, but you don't realize that trying to solve for these things is not gonna give you, I would say, long-term results, long-term outcomes, because you're just kind of like, uh, kind of like, uh, you're forcing yourself into addressing issues that are all caused by one single thing, and that is, in some instances, maybe your lack of understanding of different processes, your lack of innovation when it comes to sourcing deals, in some instances, maybe your lack of capabilities of working with somebody else and getting that done so that you can free up more of your time and allocate your resources in a better way so that you can ultimately get the outcome that you need. So a lot of people focus on, and instead of focusing on causes, they focus on symptoms. All these symptoms that I just mentioned. So the lack of deal flow, the bad deal flow, the fact that they always did things this way and now it seems not to be so effective anymore, the fact that they don't want to pay anything for sourcing deals, all these are rooting back to the same causes, right? In to some respect, I feel deal flow and deal origination, business deals are changing a lot because not only AI, but the internet in general are creating and generating a lot of opportunities for sourcing transactions. And relying on one single solution just because it is the one that performed better for you historically might not be the best option for you going forward, especially if you're competing against other folks that do think ahead and try to structure their system as a real business in reality. Because this is a funny thing, but in most cases, I talk with a lot of people that look at M&A as something significantly different than a normal business. Well, in reality, there are quite a few similarities, right? So instead of acquiring customers per se, we're trying to build relationships and find business owners that want to exit or acquire assets, depending on the side that you're looking into. And then we want to convert these opportunities into something. It might be a deal, it might be an engagement, you name it. So fundamentally, we're running a sale process, right? And it might be a long sale process because maybe the sales cycle is 2-3 months long, but still a sale process is what we're talking about. And a lot of folks put in scattered effort hoping for consistent results. And that is kind of like a huge mismatch or discrepancy that they have in their system, right? Because they don't have predictability in what they're doing. They're not tracking anything. They don't understand where their numbers are going to come from. And without that, it's kind of difficult to predict how many transactions you're going to close, how much money you're going to make, and so forth. Independently of how big of a company you are, I saw this mistake being made by big advisory firms. I asked them their numbers. I mean, how many deals do you want to close this year? They said, I don't know, 5, let's say. And okay, how many opportunities you need to negotiate or sign as a client in order to get to that 5? Let's say they said 10. Okay, how many deals do you need to see in a year in order to get that outcome? They didn't know. How many business owners you need to connect with in the first place in order to get these opportunities? They didn't know. What is the average conversion cycle? I mean, the time that goes from first approach to yes, let's get this done. They didn't know. So there are a lot of challenges that these folks are facing, and you might be one of them if you're watching this video. And again, all they focus on is symptoms. So I have this problem right now, so I'm missing deals, or I'm missing this transaction to hit my quota, or all the deals I have are shit. And they try to solve that specific issue, kind of like trying to find short-term solutions for long-term problems. And that doesn't work. And it kind of like keeps them spiral into a cycle that never gives them real continuity and real sustainability over time, because they never build something that can be leveraged over and over again. They don't have a system to originate transactions. And I was having this fun conversation with an advisory firm, a very reputable one, so not a business buyer in this case. And the problem they were facing was they were looking to sign more sales side clients. So the process that they were running was quite consistent, to be fair. They tried a lot of different things, but most of what they were doing was, referrals, affiliates, and these sorts of things. They tried other things in the past, but they felt they didn't provide the outcomes that they were hoping for. And I'm not going to dive into the reasons. There are many. But the point was, okay, we feel we're not getting the results that we want, but we're unwilling to make any change whatsoever because we would rather stay complacent where we are instead of just trying to get things to a better place, right? And so it was like a funny discussion because it's like it almost seemed like they were aware that something was missing, but they were incapable of accepting the fact that they needed some outside help. And I can relate to that because in most cases, people in this industry are very smart. And so they are able and capable of figuring things out on their own. But in a lot of cases, it doesn't really mean, working with somebody else doesn't really mean that you are less capable than they are. Maybe it just means that you value your time a lot more and you understand their tasks that require your attention a lot more. And so you are willing to outsource or delegate everything that is not that particular task, might be closing deals or negotiating deals, and just focus all your attention on that. And so we were having this conversation where they were not open to making changes, but they still saw there were a lot of problems happening. And getting back to the short-term cycle versus long-term cycle, finding short-term solutions to long-term problems. They basically said that a lot of the referrals and affiliate connections they were getting were people that were interested in selling their business right away. So kind of like the urgency was very, very high. So they were getting very hot leads. They were coming in, they would say, okay, I decided I want to sell my business in the next few months. Let's get this rolling. Not a lot of discussion that they needed to go through. They can just sign up the client and that worked out for them. What is the challenge there? Well, fundamentally, if we look at things as a funnel, they were just addressing the bottom of the funnel, right? So very hot prospects that they were ready to take action. The challenge there is that there's only a limited amount of these people in any industry, in any market, independently of the type of business that you might want to run. There are only so many people that are high intent, they are problem aware, they understand the process, and they're ready to go. Of course, those are going to be easy sales because, in the case of this advisory firm, or, in the case of somebody acquiring a business, they're going to be easy deals because they already know what they want to do. They're committed. They don't need a lot of convincing, and you can just pull the trigger and execute the deal. In this case, sign an engagement. In the case of a buyer, acquired a company. What's the problem though, as I said? There are too little of them. And as you grow or as you decide to do more acquisitions or sign more sales side clients, the challenge becomes apparent. Independently of how good your network is, you're not going to get enough of these hot leads every year. Independently of how good your affiliate network is, you're not going to get enough of these. So you're going to start to move, and you're going to have to move, on other levels of the funnel. Middle of the funnel, top of the funnel, where there are people that might be thinking about an exit, might be thinking about selling, but they might not be ready to do it just yet. Or they might be people that are considering an exit, let's say in 24, 36 months, but they're still in a very embryonic stage when it comes to the decision. You're going to have to work on these folks. And whether you like it or not, scale or more deals in a year come through that. A lot of folks, again, focus on the symptom that is, I don't have enough deals, or I don't have enough quality deals. And they feel that they just need to do more of what they're doing. So in this case, increase the strength of the network and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm just saying that is not enough to get you where you want to go. If you want to close more deals, if you want to build a portfolio of acquisitions, if you want to sign up more sales side clients. The objective is to create a system that nurtures people that might be ready later on. Because these guys are going to be the motivated folks 12 months in the future, 24 months in the future. And if you just wait for them to become motivated before you step in the door, chances are, well, they might not choose you, and two, they might go into a completely different direction. So we don't want to miss out on that opportunity simply because we're too lazy to build a system that ultimately nurtures the relationship and delivers to us these deals when they're mature and when they're ready to go. Now, an interesting fact is that a lot of time I get the objection, and this is kind of funny one, that it's not worth the effort to nurture these leads, which is kind of, again, a contradiction per se, because we are in an industry where a sales cycle can take a lot of time, closing a deal can take a lot of time, and patience is kind of like something that you need to have in order to, break through. And I see a lot of people not being patient in this circumstance and wanting to get outcomes right now. And again, that is part of the problem that I mentioned, focusing on symptoms instead of causes. So they see that they don't have enough deal flow, or they don't have it in the quality they want, and they want to solve it right now. They want to solve the problem right now because if they don't close the deal in the next 3 months, they're going to be in dip shit. They're not going to meet their quota. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to reach their portfolio target and so forth. The issue is the cause of that problem starts way back in the work they didn't do to build a pipeline that is actually consistent. And that is what is causing these issues right now. And so they're kind of like messing things up and putting the cart before the horse, trying to solve an issue that cannot be solved with short-term thinking. And the idea there for me, and what I always suggest to everybody, independently of whether they work with us or whether we source deals for them or we build systems for them, is create something that is sustainable over time and that enables you to nurture people on multiple channels in different ways, and really creates a consistent pipeline of lead flow that you constantly get, independently, again, of whether you're looking to close these deals or sign them as a sales side client. And the idea there is we don't necessarily want to step in and try to go for the jugular right away and say, okay, are you looking to sell? Yes, let's get going. Let's get this thing done. But it's more like, if you're considering this as an option in the future, we should have X, Y, and Z touch points to see where you're at in the process. And that makes, in my opinion, perfect sense. And back in the day, I didn't used to think this way because I was short-sighted too. I was thinking, well, I want to do a deal right now, or I want to sign a client right now. And the challenge with that, especially in this industry, is that selling a business is not a decision that you make like that, unless something tragic or very disruptive happens in your life, a death or something terrible, health issue, and all these sorts of things. So if those things are not there, and these kind of like huge changes in somebody's life happen, then we get into the arena of, okay, an exit is going to be something that I'm planning for and that I want to build for or build towards, because I spent 10, 15, 20, 30 years building this company. I want to make sure I get this done right. So why we on our side as buyers or advisors or whatever, wouldn't we invest 3, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months in nurturing that relationship so that we can understand where you're at in the process, how you're thinking through it, and then separate ourselves from competition, because we were able to respect your time frame and also constantly be in touch to potentially support or interact at all stages. I feel that's the real way to build deal flow, especially now that we're heading into, and we already are in a, um, we're living in a society where we're all interconnected and reaching out to people is very easy. And especially in the US, the market for acquisitions is very saturated. It becomes a question of how do you develop these relationships so that people decide to choose you instead of somebody else. Because the truth is, most sellers sometimes don't realize it, but the truth is that a lot of people have money to buy companies. So it all comes down to how do we differentiate ourselves from other folks that have money. And it doesn't matter if you're a search fund, a private equity group, or even an advisor that has buyers that can acquire these assets. How do we separate ourselves other than showing them that we have the capability to execute on the deal, that we have the experience, the expertise, that we preserve the legacy? So it's like, how do we build that rapport so that when the time comes, we are the first person that you're thinking about? I feel that is kind of like one of the core objectives. And almost choking myself with coffee here. And it is thinking about the cause, the root cause of the problem, which is, if we really want to have a consistent pipeline of deals, we need to start building things for the long term and have a kind of like a wheel that is constantly going up and down and bringing us opportunities. And if somebody is not ready, that's not an issue. We will nurture the relationship and potentially get back 3, 6, 9 months later. And at that time, when the guy is ready, pull the trigger on the transaction. It's funny to realize that and kind of like share that with you, because, to me now it sounds quite obvious. And it is funny also to see that the most successful companies I work with do realize that. I've worked with big private equity groups and advisory firms that were very successful and very big. And truth to be said, they were the guys that did realize that this was the most important aspect, probably because they were in the game for the long term. So they didn't really have any rush. They weren't in a rush to make something happen. They didn't have to prove anything to anybody. So that really enabled them to think strategically and long term. Instead, I saw other folks, maybe smaller advisory firms, brokers, search funds, and small investment firms, being a little bit short-sighted and trying to push things to happen, not on their own time frame or timeline. That is a dangerous process to go through, because it creates spikes, right? So you might be able to get a little bit of results immediately, but then you cannot maintain that consistently, because it's funny. Sometimes people say, well, how many deals can I expect from you in the first 30 days? How many deals can I expect from you in the first 60 days? And the answer is, I don't know. It depends on the market. It depends on the type of asset that you're looking to acquire. We cannot predict how many people are going to be interested in selling a business at any point in time. We can make educated guesses based on the past data, based on industry, insights, but those are all guesses. And anybody that would guarantee you anything, I don't know where they're basing that guarantee and how they're structuring a guarantee that is like that, because that is not conducive to success, and it's not correspondent to the truth, right? Ultimately, in my opinion, the objective is to have a long-term process that is bringing deals consistently. And the sooner you start building that, the better it is. Because if you start putting in efforts right now and maybe these efforts are going to pay dividends 3 months down the road, in 3 months you're going to be there anyway. So if you don't put in the effort now, 3 months later you're going to be there regretting the fact that you didn't build a pipeline that was consistent, and you're going to have the same problems that you had before, like, well, I don't have enough deal flow, or I don't have the transactions that I'd like, or I have a lot of deal flow but they're all shit, but all the transactions are shit. And you're going to wonder why you have the same problem recurring over and over again. And the reality of it is you were always focused on symptoms instead of causes. Instead, if you take care of the work, beforehand, then ultimately all these efforts that you put in are going to catch up and create a cycle that then becomes very, very consistent over time. Because what most people don't realize is, and even big firms, right, big advisory firms, big private equity groups that we work with, is that the hardest part is the initial setup of things, right? Because you have nothing going. Maybe you relied on network referrals and all these sorts of things for your entire career. Now you want to build a pipeline that finds business owners for you and connects with them, nurtures them for the long term. So you're starting from zero fundamentally when it comes to building your own proprietary deal flow pipeline. That is going to be hard because you're going to need to ramp up things, and generally we help people with that so that they can accelerate quite fast. But then you're going to need to wait for things to mature. And so deals that you source now might mature in 3 months' time. Then deals that you source in month 2 might mature in month 5, and so on and so forth. What's going to happen is that after 2-3 months, things are going to start catching up, and ultimately you're never going to have that issue of feeling like things are getting stuck or that you're going up and then down and all these sorts of things, because you're going to have a system that is predictably bringing deals, and now you've gone through the startup phase, if we want to call it this way, and all the work that you put in 2-3 months before is starting to catch up and deliver the outcome that you need. So it's like you're putting in effort right now, delaying the reward or the gratification for it 3, 6, 9 months in the future. And I understand some folks might say, well, we might not have the internal capabilities for doing that, or we might not be willing to invest the resources for doing that with somebody else. But my question is, well, what's the solution then? Are you going to keep doing deals that are brought to you and that have a high level of urgency? These transactions are going to be limited. You're not going to have enough of them to scale or to grow the way you really want to. And even if you just want to close one deal and you're a search fund, still you're not going to get enough deals to close the transaction that you desire within the expected time frame. The point is, and what I'm getting to is, that cycle doesn't work because it only focuses on your short-term needs. It doesn't take care of your future self or the future of your business. So thinking ahead of time is really the only solution, because you can still have that pipeline of short-term transactions going, right? And add something to it that can pay dividends down the line. So it's not like one thing is mutually exclusive. It's not like the two things are mutually exclusive. It's like one thing complements the other. And it really is, in my view, the only way to think about sourcing deals as we continuously progress and technology is advancing, and now we have really countless ways to connect with business owners, build relationships, and create systems that really keep people informed, not only in a very pushy and salesy way where we just reach out for a specific need and we want to close that transaction or sign that client, but we can look at systems in a very structured and I would say fluid way, where we nurture the relationships and add value to them as we progress. One of the things that has worked very well for us historically is that we integrated different ways to follow up with people depending on the stage they're at in the process, right? So somebody is looking to sell in the next 1 or 2 months, we might be a little bit more aggressive. If somebody is looking to sell in the next 6 to 12 months, we might shift toward an approach that is more like value-based follow-up. So we're educating the person on why we are the right choice as a buyer or as an advisor, and we're nurturing that by providing them additional value, things that make him feel like this is the person I want to go with when it comes to a transaction. Because look what happens as we go, if we project ourselves 12 months in the future and we have this guy that was interested in selling, and now he's confronted with a choice and is like, okay, should I go or should I sell to a buyer that just reached out to me, or should I sell to somebody that invested a lot of time in building the relationship where I was just thinking about potentially selling? Same degree for an advisor. Should I choose an advisor that just reached out to me and that might help me sell the company, or somebody that I built a relationship with over time and that also share with me a lot of market insights on how to optimize the business, how to make things better, or maybe how to prepare for a sale? That becomes a really a no-brainer. And some of you might argue, well, a lot of that is going to come down to how much you charge them as a fee or as an advisor, or what price are you charging, or what price are you paying as a buyer? But that's not really the case in my experience. I mean, sometimes, and most times, what I saw is that people choose to go and choose the option that kind of like is stronger from a relationship standpoint. And that is because selling a business is a life-changing, decision. So you wouldn't, even if the price is a little bit better, you wouldn't necessarily go with the guy that is paying you the most if you don't feel he's going to preserve the legacy of the business, if you don't feel your values are aligned to the same degree. You're not going to go with an advisor that maybe is charging you a little bit less, because if you don't know if it's going to help you the way you like, if he understands your business fully, and if he has a deep kind of like interest in your success and in maximizing the value of the business that you're selling. So again, getting back to my initial point, and I'm heading to a conclusion here, symptoms versus causes. I mean, a lot of folks focus on symptoms, and there are an endless list that I can make and I can share about symptoms that people try to address without understanding the root cause of the issue. DealFlow pipeline, consistent pipeline, a system that keeps delivering for you. That's what we help people create, and sometimes we just run the system for them. We can help you too. If you check the link in the description, we helped, again, companies, advisors, strategic buyers, search funds globally, North America, Europe, Middle East, source deals from 1 million to 75, 100 million in enterprise value, different markets, different sectors, industries, you name it, really. So the problem is not who you are and what is it that you're looking for. The challenge is, do you understand that deal origination is changing, it is evolving, and relationships and kind of like referrals might not necessarily be the best solution anymore. And also, addressing symptoms instead of causes is certainly not the right way to look at things. So I hope this makes sense in some way, sharing my thoughts around some acquisitions, and I'll see you in the next